Hey everyone, on this episode of Limitless Live, I was privileged to be joined by Sasha Patton, who is the owner of Tidy AF, and she is a professional organizer and a designer who helped significantly in the opening of one of our spaces here, as well as doing Christmas decorations for us. And she's just been a fantastic connection in the community, and so it was a privilege to be able to have a conversation with her, and I'm excited to share that with you now. So here's that conversation. Sasha, thank you so much for accepting my invitation to come chat a little bit today. I have known Sasha for, uh, I've known of Sasha for probably 3 or 4 years, but I'll say I've known you for a little over a year now, probably. Um, we met through some networking stuff and have certainly gotten the opportunity to see one another operate in the business world. So I just want to use this as an opportunity to talk a little bit personally and professionally
Yeah.
about um, probably some things that we already know about each other, but maybe some things we don't already know
Oh,
about each
yeah.
other.
Hopefully some new stuff too.
That's right. So I'm gonna start with my I don't know if I'd call this my favorite, but my most memorable story that you told me when I was first getting to know you, and that is
Okay.
you own a professional organizing business that is called Tidy AF, and I thought it was hilarious when we were sitting down for the first time, and I asked you about some of your favorite clients, and you said a church. That just the whole idea of having a business called
Little
Tidy AF,
unexpected.
right? And then like they're having you come in and like clean up their Sunday school room and they're this and that and
Totally.
whatever. That was one of my absolute favorites. So, with that kind of as the backdrop, let's start with just like why professional organizing, and then we can
Yeah.
kind of go from there.
Um, I mean, our lives tend to like evolve over time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can go to college and get a degree in something, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to do it forever.
Right.
So, yeah, after getting a bachelor's degree in fine art and then kind of doing a 180, I ended up getting a master's degree in education and taught public school for 14 years. But 10 of that was as an art teacher.
Mm.
But I learned pretty quickly after having kids that if you give all your energy to other people's children all day at school, you don't have much left for your own babies. At least I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
So that became a real like rock and a hard place kind of situation for me.
Mm.
I felt like I had to choose between being a good mom or being a good teacher. And ultimately, when we moved here about 3.5 years ago, I had to have a job, right? I needed income for my family. And that rock and hard place became ultra real. And I just couldn't go back to the classroom.
Yep.
And then I just had to spend a couple months having some hard conversations with myself. Like, what the heck do I want to be when I grow up? But I'm 42 years old. Like,
Right.
um, and then it was just this mental conversation with myself about like, what do I just love to do?
Mm-hmm.
What have I enjoyed innately since I was a child?
Mm-hmm.
What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? And every single time I kept coming back to design and organizing. The organizing thing, I knew that it would be a legitimate service business opportunity that I could build and take advantage of.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I thought about it a bit more, it was like, but I also, without having a degree in interior design, I have all of this background in art and design and home remodeling and construction and handy woman work, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, when you have these conversations with yourself in your head, it's like an evolution that takes place, like one thought leads to another over a period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kept coming back to this.
Okay.
And I mean, you know how it goes. You decide to start a business. You
Heck yeah.
just start.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the hardest step is to start, right?
It's
Because
I would
there's
I would agree with that.
all the
Yeah.
reasons in your head of why this is scary and it won't work and I'm gonna
Well,
fail and we're gonna be on food stamps and whatever. And
all
then
of
you
it,
just yeah.
all of it. And the like over analyzer in me who wants to like I will over plan anything.
Sure.
And the over analyzer in me was like, well, what's the right first step?
Right.
What am I supposed to do
Mm-hmm.
first and then second and on and on and on? And a friend of mine was like, Sasha, you just have to do it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
sure, you need to do a couple things,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't really matter what order necessarily. Like, just hit go and start.
Yeah. So now you've had the business for how long now?
It'll be 3 years in May.
Okay.
Yeah.
Of all the like major sectors of running a business, from marketing to sales to operations to hiring to all those kind of things, like
Yeah.
what do you enjoy the most and what do you find the most challenging?
I love talking to people
Okay.
about what they're struggling with in their space.
Okay.
Having those conversations is really, I've always been, I've loved like a one-on-one people experiences, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I, I've always appreciated being a bit of a fly on the wall
Mm-hmm.
or even an eavesdropper
Mm-hmm.
in a good way, but being invited into someone's personal space and holding space for them to be vulnerable and
Mhm.
share their challenges and frustrations. Or, I mean, I feel really lucky in that I get to know a lot of intimate things about people's lives
Mhm.
and homes, and to be trusted with that, but also to then turn around and take the information they gave us and solve their problems and make their daily life smoother. It's really, that's my favorite part.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what about least favorite, or maybe just most challenging, most daunting?
Hiring.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair.
I was like, what do I want to ask Jordan today? I want to ask him about hiring and firing.
Well, we can talk about that, but I'll be honest, any wisdom that I have about that is either learned through my own failure or the fact that my wife is a professional recruiter. So I kind of have like a
Yeah.
ace in the hole understanding a little more about that.
Maybe
So
I
we
need
can
to
definitely
talk to
talk
your
about
wife.
that. She's no joke. She's uh I'll just, not to derail the conversation, but I had one person on my team. If anybody on my team listens to this, they'll know exactly who I'm talking about. I have one person on my team who I wanted as an employee in our business, but could not even get like a response from like an email
Oh,
or
man.
a
Yeah.
LinkedIn message or whatever. And
Yeah.
finally, my wife goes, "You want me to do it?" And I was like, "Yeah." And
Yeah.
she got it real
She got her
quick. So,
done.
yeah, she knows how to do
Nice.
that kind of stuff. So
Nice.
yes, it's nice. They have some ninja skills in that world, but there's much more to it than just getting a response from somebody in an online message. So that's not all she does. But in that way, she helped me big time. So yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Sweet.
So I can agree on the hiring side just from the standpoint of, and my wife would say this, who does this for a living, at best it's 50-50 in terms of
best.
like who
Ooh.
you interview
Yeah.
versus 6 weeks, 6 months into that position, who that person actually is and how adaptable and coachable and all those things that you want somebody to be.
Totally.
Just like you can ask all the best questions. You can have them fill out all the standardized assessments.
Yes.
You can do a mock scenario in the interview where they have to, in our case, they have to treat a pretend patient, or in your case, you might have like a room and ask them to submit like a design idea or a proposal or whatever it might be. I mean, there's so many people that can fake it once. It's you can't fake it over the course of
such
6
a good
weeks
way
or
to
6
put it.
months.
The most challenging experience we had with, well, I'll back up and say that the best people that we've had on our team so far are people that have just kind of landed in my lap.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't even necessarily looking for anyone at the time that they crossed paths with us. And it's like magic. It just happens.
Yep.
And then the couple times where we've actually like formally put the word out, had interviewed a few people and done all that, those were the ones that were just, we bombed and bombed hard.
Sure.
Like, yeah, they seemed great in the interview, and then no.
Yeah, the like high performer, high achiever type can mask a lot in an interview too, because again, they will come across as somebody who is just going to be like a task achiever, a go getter. They'll get the job done.
Totally.
But at least in our environment, and maybe this is true for yours, to me, what I have found now over the course of 5+ years, and we have 8 employees on our team right now, but have cumulatively probably had 15 or 20 people
Sure.
that have worked for me at some given time.
Yeah.
One of the differentiators of the people that have stuck around and the people that have been successful are the ones who actually want to function as a part of a team, right?
Yeah.
It is different of like, I mean, I guess I'll do this because I have to, versus like, I want to be a part of a team. I want to jump in and carry weight for somebody else whenever they're struggling, or I
Totally.
want to be coached and critiqued, or I want to be challenged. Like all those things that you think about from a sports analogy or a high performing business team, whatever, like all the things that go into that, the people that want that are the people.
Right.
There are other people that will tolerate it. There are other people
Right.
that will,
Or even say they want it, but
sure,
then in reality, they're
right,
not
right.
actually in
Like,
on
fine,
it.
I'll come to this meeting, but if you want me to like prepare or like contribute anything to it, like, no thanks. It's,
Yeah, dang.
you know,
Yeah.
that can only last for so long. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that is a challenge. Okay. So another question that I have for you then is, you mentioned your background in education. Um, so talk to me, like, what is your perspective now as a parent of two school age children
Yeah.
who are now a part of the educational system in some form or fashion? Like, how has that shaped your perspective on your goals for parenting and educating your children? You're not their teacher per se, but what does that look like for you?
It's constantly changing. And just when I think we figured it out, it's like, oh, nope.
Yep.
Not the right
Mm-hmm.
fit, not the right option, whatever. I will start by saying that I love the idea of public education.
Mm-hmm.
And it's making me emotional. Like, it's kind of taking me off guard. I so completely believe that everybody deserves a good education
Of course.
and that it should be part of what our society offers
Mm-hmm.
to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
It's a cornerstone of a true democratic society.
It's a right, not a privilege. Right?
Indeed.
Right.
Indeed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I also think that a number, not all, but a number of components of the public education system are still baselined in the Industrial Revolution,
Oh, 100%.
which is, I mean, that's when public education became a thing, so
Right.
all the parents could go to work and make money and
Yep.
la-da-da.
Mm-hmm.
Has it come a long way since the Industrial Revolution? Absolutely.
Right.
But having been in that world now, I should say that my teaching career was in Albuquerque, New Mexico. It
Sure.
wasn't in South Carolina.
Right.
But by and large, like when we moved here, people were like, oh, what part of town do you live in? What schools do you want your kids to go to? Oh, you're a teacher. You probably really want them to go to a good school, quote
Sure.
unquote.
Sure.
And honestly, that really kind of ruffles my feathers.
Mm.
A good school has little or nothing to do with what part of town it's in.
Right.
In my experience, the number one contributing factor to the success of a school community is parent involvement.
Parental engagement was going to be my guess. So there you go. Yep.
And ironically, the schools that have the, quote, bad reputations are the ones in the parts of town with lower economic status,
Mm-hmm.
lower property value, like
Mm-hmm.
all of those, unsurprising, predictable factors. Sure. And those are the families with parents who's, those are the grown-ups who have to work 2-3 part-time jobs just to put food on the table.
Right.
They don't have time to be involved in their kids' school. They're just grateful that they have, free childcare, if you want to call it that.
Yep. Less likely to have two parents in the home also. So it's
Indeed,
often...
more likely to have a parent incarcerated, more
Right.
likely to be in foster care, like
Right.
all of the above.
Right.
And still, that being said, the system that I taught in Albuquerque, when I was a part of the fine arts department for 10 of my 14 years, I had to go to a different school every year as the art teacher.
Okay.
And that allowed me to teach in every part of town
Mm-hmm.
with every type of student
Mm-hmm.
from any type of background you can think of.
Yep.
And even if we take parent involvement out of the equation, teachers are freaking incredible. And I am 110% convinced that it is state and federal government that is preventing public education from being everything that I believe it could be.
Mm.
And teachers know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
They love their jobs.
Mm-hmm.
They're incredibly gifted when it comes to young children, middle school, high school, whatever their chosen area is. Now, every once in a while, is there somebody who's maybe burnt out or maybe that wasn't the right job for them in the first place? Yes, we can say that about every profession under the sun. But I can tell you from working with thousands of children and hundreds of other educators in dozens of schools that those people are few and far between.
Mm-hmm.
And when we moved here, I spent a solid year before I started Tidy AF doing a lot of activism around recess in public school. I was shocked that most elementary school students only get 20 minutes a day. And you think they're there for 6.5 hours a day. And we're talking about 4 or 5, 8, 9, 10-year-old children.
Right.
And so when you say, like, what decisions have I made for my own children? That is the one key deciding factor for me where I cannot bring myself to send my kids to public school.
Mm-hmm.
Because they are, like you and I were, I don't know if you went to public school, but
Never.
I was in a desk.
Mm-hmm.
But I got to spend a whole lot more time outside on the playground than my kids would.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so, like, it has nothing to do with my belief in the teachers. It has nothing to do with my thoughts about, Greenville County schools at large or anything else. Like, there are lots of really good things that our school system has in place. But if my child doesn't have room to develop their vestibular system, or develop problem-solving skills in a relatively unsupervised social setting with their peers, like, these are the things that make us who we are and give us opportunities to learn naturally how to exist in the world and be part of a community or part of a friend group. And we have slowly but surely, really since No Child Left Behind, I feel like just pulled the rug out from under little kids.
Yep.
And so at the end of the day, I choose to put my children in a school setting where they get more physical activity, or as much as possible anyway. I still don't think that they get as much as I know they need.
Right.
But we did homeschool for a year, and I learned that is not for us. I've told you this, but I've expelled two children from homeschool, though, so I know how that works.
Yeah. Our youngest do it, but our oldest two, I have no problem with them hearing this because I've told them a number of times that we got to a point where we said,
it's just not right for everybody.
Nope.
And it's so dependent upon the dynamic between the parent and the child, or whoever the adult is that's the teacher. But those relationship dynamics and the fact that you're, assuming you live with whoever the educator is in that setting, it's so much more complex. I think there's a lot of value in having a teacher be someone who isn't part of your family, or, not a family member that you live with.
For sure.
As a teacher, I've seen what children are capable of when the grown-ups that care for them are not around. And it can be magical. I mean, my son will hold on to my leg all day and not do anything if I stay with him at school. But when I'm not there, he just opens up and becomes himself. And I really, the problems that I see with public education could easily be solved without money. And if anything, the solving of the problems is going to save money. Like, actually flush all the standardized tests down the toilet. Just say goodbye.
Can we throw the Chromebooks with them too, by the way?
Please. Well, and I'm glad that you brought that up, because when I started teaching, that was 2009, 2010. And that was shortly after No Child Left Behind. And there was this huge push for technology in schools.
Right.
Like, it was right before smartphones really became a thing.
Right.
And it was just this big turning point. Like, we want kids to know how to use a computer, and more than just I had typing class.
Sure.
That was about it.
I did too. Yep.
And I was on the yearbook staff. And at the time, it sounded like a good plan. Like, great, let's teach kids some of these basic skills.
Yep.
But then it quickly snowballed. And now, just within the span of my time as an art teacher was 10 years, and I taught kindergarten through 5th grade. And so between my first year as an art teacher and my final year as an art teacher, the difference I saw in the kindergartners was terrifying. Within a decade, I had 5-year-olds or almost 5-year-olds come into my classroom who could look at you, who could confidently raise their hand, who could walk across the room to get supplies off of a table, who could converse with their peers in a, age-appropriate, developmentally appropriate kind of way. cut reasonably well as expected with scissors, take caps on and off markers. Just like these
Sure.
are the kinds of things you notice when you're a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time I was done teaching art 10 years later, their skills were just, infantile.
Right.
The number of emotional meltdowns. And this is not research based in any form or fashion, but the only conclusion I can reasonably come to is screens, is smartphones. These babies, from the time they could hold a phone, if they're in the shopping cart at the store or crying in the back seat of the car, it's like, just here, have a screen. Now, do I give my kids screens if I have to take them with me to a doctor's appointment or if we're on a long plane flight? Absolutely.
Right.
But it's a balance.
Mm-hmm.
And to see the difference in my kindergartners within that such a short span of time was really informative to me. I think it can be a great tool, and I think it's abused more often than not.
For sure.
And it's ultimately impacting our biology, the neurological development of young children, the physiological development of young children. And I think it's over time, and a length of time, gonna impact the evolution of our species. Like,
yeah, sure.
we're going down a deep rabbit hole now.
Effects.
Like, compounding effects, totally. Like, most people have probably seen the movie WALL-E. I think of WALL-E all the time. Like, these people didn't know what they didn't know because they'd been on that spacecraft for 700 some years.
Right.
But then when they actually had the opportunity to stand up back on Earth under the sunshine and actually look at each other in the eye instead of through a screen, it became this whole, it's a cartoon movie, but
oh, it's metaphorical though, for sure. Yep, for sure.
And that's an older movie at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a good one. So I got to correct one thing I said to you earlier when I said I'd never been to public school. That's not technically true. I actually did technically go to public school for my last 2 years of high school, but it was like a magnet school that you had to apply to. So it still wasn't the type of public school that you're talking about.
Was it vocational or job related?
It's just the governor's school, not the one that's here in Greenville. There's one in Hartsville for science and math. So it's basically like they take the top whatever number. I think it was in my class. It was the top 2 kids from each county that applied would get in, and it was just kind of like I don't know.
So you were the
magnet
top 2
school on steroids. Yeah.
Go Jordan!
Yeah,
look at you.
Yeah, school was not a struggle for me until I got there. And then it was like, then you're surrounded by people. I actually remember they have like a little convocation, on the first week when you get there. And the president of the school gets up there and all the parents are there and everything. And he goes, everybody in this room for their entire life has been special. Not anymore. He goes, you are not special anymore.
Woo.
He goes, as a matter of fact, you will consistently find yourself more often than not being the least talented, least equipped, least intelligent person in the room rather than always being the smart. And so it was a very good learning experience for me. There's no doubt. But it was very humbling.
But if you set the state, as an educator, I hear you say that. And I know that if a teacher sets the stage like that, straight out of the gate, it sets a tone that we're here to work.
100%.
But we're here to challenge each other. And then the beauty of that, even though it may come off as a little harsh at the onset, the beauty of that is that then everything after that feels like an achievement.
100%. No more of this.
So then people have this very clear, we're just gonna grow and get better and better. So kudos.
Yeah, no more of this endless oh well, we even if you fail something, the minimum grade we can give you is a 50. So we're just propping your grades up, or you didn't turn this thing in on time, but we'll give you an extension. Or, we have a test, but we're going to put 20 extra credit questions on the test that are layups. So that you can at least, it's just that's not the real world. That doesn't exist anymore. If you aren't prepared, you're going to fail. So just live with that,
and the fact that we, in a lot of ways, take those opportunities away for kids in school. There's still so much extrinsic motivation. If it's giving kids candy for participating or, that's just, or stickers or whatever. My youngest goes to a little nonprofit Montessori school and he just turned 6 and he is so beautifully intrinsically motivated to do basic stuff around the house. And I saw the same thing when my 11-year-old was around his age, even though he went to a similar school. It wasn't a Montessori school, but where they really empowered the children to like get a cup of water for yourself.
Right.
Throw your trash away.
Mm-hmm.
Put your plate from snack in the sink. Like
Mm-hmm.
my 6-year-old helps wash dishes after snack every day at school. Like,
Nice.
that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that plays into so many minute things in our daily life for the rest of our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, in Japan, children help clean the cafeteria after lunchtime.
Mm-hmm.
They don't start teaching children how to read until they're closer to 7 years old instead of 4 and 5.
Right.
And we wonder why the rest of the developed world is doing so much better than us. And it's like, well, guys, because they actually appreciate and value and invest in true early childhood education, which is not academic
Right.
at all.
Right.
And I think that's between that and not enough unstructured outdoor play.
Mm-hmm.
Those are two of the things that we could easily solve for little to no money
Mm-hmm.
and change the country.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
You and my wife would get along extremely well talking about this. So she got a degree in elementary education from Vanderbilt, which is like the #1 education program in
Heck
the
yeah.
country.
Yeah.
Like thought that's what she wanted to do.
Mhm.
Spent 1 year teaching in a Title I school in Nashville. It was just like,
Ouch.
this system cannot all those skills that we learned over there, I can use like 10% of it here. You
Yeah.
know, just like
Yeah.
you feel like you're practicing with shackles and handcuffs on the whole time. You know.
Yeah.
And the same thing happens in our profession. I mean, there's a reason why our practice is structured the way that it is there is a, to a lesser extent than other countries, but there is essentially a publicly subsidized healthcare system at large, right? There's these large health conglomerates. And when I say they're publicly subsidized, what I mean by that is the way our payment structure works a lot of times is people will have either private or government subsidized insurance, but these big health conglomerates, so here locally, like the Prismas and the Bon Secours and the Spartanburg Regionals of the world, they can contractually, both with government payers and with private payers,
Yeah.
they can charge and collect more for the same services
Oh, yeah.
than a private practice can because the government is subsidizing those services, right?
Yeah.
And yet, public education and healthcare are like the two things that people complain about the most, right? And it's not for lack of spending, right?
No.
It's not, you know what we need to do? We just need to throw some more money at the problem, right? It's like,
No.
that's not it at all.
No. When I
Right.
was doing, like I mentioned, I did a lot of activism around adding recess time for about a year. I went to every school board meeting, stood up and talked every time I went, picked up the phone and called state lawmakers, local lawmakers, school board members, like went down to Greenville County Schools office, like met with, everybody in charge of academics. And I mean, I got to talk to a lot of people. And at the end of the day, everybody was just like, this is how it is.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay.
Right.
But it's not the right way.
Right.
It's not the best way, especially for young children.
Right.
So let's let South Carolina like shine
Mm-hmm.
and show the country what's up.
Mm-hmm.
And what I simultaneously love and don't love about the South is I love how rooted this part of the country is in simple things like manners
Mm-hmm.
and community.
Mm-hmm.
Just a general like politeness,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's just for the sake of being nice. Like, okay, you're having a bad day, but you can, kind of suck it up and hold the door for somebody and, say hello to a stranger.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, that same culture is so rooted in, well, this is just how it's done. Right. I mean, apply that to any idea.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're going to, as business owners, as individual human beings, as part of a community with a public school system or a healthcare system, like we have to flip that on its head
Mm-hmm.
and say like, well, okay, sure, this is the way we've done it, but it's not serving us anymore.
Right.
So what are we going to do now?
Right.
Yeah.
It is. So to empathize though with the healthcare system, with the educational system, I think you as a business owner have probably experienced this. I know I have, is that if we're an expert at what we do, it's easy for us to do that thing well.
Sure.
It is incredibly hard to do that thing well at scale.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
yes.
It is very easy for me to have one patient in front of me and me to give a great experience to that one patient. It is much harder to employ 5 therapists and them each have 5 patients that they're seeing right now and know that all 5 of those people are getting a consistently good experience,
Yeah,
right? Like
totally.
that's part of our job as a business owner, but that's a lot harder, right? So then
Yeah.
multiplying over scale for millions of children or millions of individuals in the healthcare system, like I get it that it's hard. I think what it takes though is you have to have leadership that has a vision for what it is
Big
supposed to
time.
look like. And I think that is probably one of the most lacking things, particularly in the education side, is just like, what is the vision? What are we trying to create? Or, like you said, it's
Yeah.
just, this is,
Yeah.
there's no vision.
Yeah.
We're just here.
No, I
Like,
went to a school board meeting and verbatim read the Greenville County Schools like district mission out loud,
mhm.
and then bullet pointed all the things that we were doing that were like the antithesis of that mission.
Mm.
It's like this mission on paper is great, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Like I love it.
Kudos to the marketing person that wrote this.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So let's do it.
Right.
And I think there's some fear.
Mm-hmm.
There's also like it'd be really hard and it'd be a lot of work and it's so many things to change. But it doesn't have to be all at once. Like even if you're gonna, rewrite an SOP as a business owner, or you've created this amazing space with the gym and the offices downstairs and this studio up here. Like it didn't all happen overnight.
Gosh, no.
I mean, when you guys opened, you didn't even have chairs in the lobby.
Exactly.
But you had to open your doors and get that ball rolling.
We got to go.
If you wait for things to be perfect, you're bound to fail.
Yeah. And I think there's also just some like emotional or identity attachment too to like, well, if I'm going to commit to change, then I have to admit that I've been doing it the wrong way for some amount of time. Right?
Yeah.
Like that's hard too, right?
Yeah.
Just like, or it's well, you know what? This is the way we did it when I was a kid and I turned out okay. Why can't this generation of kids just figure it out?
Well,
you got to love that mindset, right?
Gotta love that mindset.
So, where I want to take it next was, I've heard you talk about this a lot. I think this is fascinating in terms of just what you're at when you're doing some type of organizing, decorating, design job for somebody, what you're actually giving them or what you're actually doing for them, and what some of like the actual like mental health components are that tie into that. Because mental health can be on both extremes, right? You'll see people that are on like the hoarding extreme where like clutter and organization is
for
something
sure.
that they're incapable of.
Yeah.
And then you have people on like the OCD extreme that are just like, if there was one wrinkle in the bed sheet, they'd sit there for an hour and try to iron it out. Or if there was one thing out of place on the kitchen counter, it would drive them nuts. And so, I'm just going to let you, because you're the expert in this, talk about like, what are the mental health effects of having a sane space, an organized space, a clean space, a space where things belong and make sense.
There's so much to unpack there. I mean, first of all, I should start by saying that I have no degree or professional training in any type of mental health field whatsoever.
Yeah, sure. Anecdotal evidence here, and that's okay.
It is kind of a professional joke, if you will, in the organizing community that we are therapists. And I think when you decide to be vulnerable enough to invite someone in your home, even if it's someone who's going to come and clean every other week, there is an obvious vulnerability there, but it's also you in one way or another coming to terms with the fact that you need help. And we all need help with different things. People love to say, "Oh, I bet your house is perfectly organized and everything's put away all the time." It's like, no, I have a 6-year-old and an 11-year-old. That would be impossible.
Right.
And before I really talk about the mental health side and what that can look like, I will say that my profession has like in a very big like commercial level, if it's in a magazine or there's TV shows about organizing, the image that all of that projects is perfection. And I wrestle with that a lot. Do I want to provide that level of service for our clients? Absolutely, every time. But what I talk with them about after we're done is like, listen, this is what it looks like. We're finished. Here's where everything is. These things are labeled. This is designed to be a flex space. This is where your, kids' diaper backstock is, give them the whole tour. And then remind them that it is unrealistic for them to expect for it to look like that 24/7.
Right.
I think the piece of the professional organizing world that often gets left out of the public image is the fact, like, the value of the investment in services like ours is the creation of the structure
Mm-hmm.
and the system.
Mm-hmm.
And people that call us don't have the structure and the system.
Right.
Now, the beauty of implementing those two things allows you to have something to fall back on that you never had before, which, that opens the door. You don't have structure and system, then the door is just wide open for chaos in your space 24/7. And then implementing the system and the structure allows you to say, like, every night before dinner, you spend 10 minutes with your family
Mm-hmm.
picking up the house.
Mm-hmm.
And people are like, well, my kids hate to do that. They won't help. And there's silly little ways to, like, sure, you can make it fun. I mean, I personally try to avoid, like, throwing consequences in my kids' face. Like, that's the intrinsic, extrinsic kind of
Right.
involvement motivation thing. If we love to turn on a song that the kids pick and race to pick up the house. And my kids know pretty much where everything goes. Now, that sounds easy enough. There's people, when people are listening to this, they're going to be like, oh, yeah, sure, whatever, Sasha, like, easier said than done. The key factor there is how much stuff you have in your home.
Bingo.
Or how much stuff your children have access to.
Right.
The overwhelming challenge that most of our clients deal with is the quantity of stuff
Mm-hmm.
within the confines of the space that they have.
And how many times do you show up and you like find a duplicate or a triplicate of the same thing? And
Every
they're like,
time.
oh,
Every time.
I've been looking for that for a while.
Every time. Every time.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's, like you mentioned hoarding a minute ago.
Yep.
I mean, we do get calls saying, we really want to help my mom. She's legit hoarder.
Mhm.
No one in our family's been able to help her. Can you come clean out her house?
Mm.
And my first question is, does your mom know you're calling me?
Mm.
Because I can, depending on the severity of the situation, I could work with your mom. But is your mom open to help?
Right.
Because if she's not, then I can't help.
Right.
But then that allows, like, if I'll use the mother as an example again. If the mom is open to help, these are usually families who have tried to help the family member who struggles with hoarding or too much stuff. I hesitate to use the word hoarding because that's not really our specialty.
Sure.
But these family members that have tried to help their loved one who's struggling with their space, they have good intentions, but those family dynamics and, history of loved ones, like, all of that is bound up in that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And when someone like us comes in, we get to be Sweden.
Mm-hmm.
We're a neutral party. There's no baggage. There's no history. They're not going to take something we say as personally as they would if, their kid or their husband said it.
Right.
And that really allows us to have the same challenging conversations,
Mhm.
but on a totally different level.
Okay.
And so that mental health piece, first it starts off with whether or not the person who needs support is open to receiving it. But then also having really, really frank, honest, open conversations with them before we even start working about, okay, well, here's everything that you have in this room. Tell me what you want this room to look like, feel like, and what do you want to use this room for?
Mm-hmm.
And every single time they say something really reasonable. Well, this is the guest room, but you can't see the bed. We can't get in the closet. I don't even know what's in the closet. So, okay, great. We can make this into a guest room for you again. Fully functional, cozy, space in the closet for your, cousin's clothes when they come to visit. For that to be possible, we're going to need to get rid of about 80% of what's in this room. What do you think about that? And then the conversation just goes from there.
Right.
And so, I mean, a lot of times at the onset, people are like, are you going to make me get rid of everything? No. My job is not to make you get rid of anything.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm doing my job well, I'm spending time connecting with you, first of all.
Right.
But taking the time to talk with you to understand what your frustrations are, what your goals are. Like in your perfect vision of your home or this one room that we're working in, I want to know those two things. And then from there, I'll say, okay, here's what I think the goals can be. How's that sound?
Mm.
Great. And then we start to move forward. Inevitably, though, along the way, people are like, I can't let that go. And you kind of gotta, you gotta give them some freebies initially.
Right.
And then once they've kind of like flexed that muscle a little bit and they see the pile of keeps versus what they're deciding to let go of is not where it needs to be. Even if they're not on board right away, that visual throughout that part of the process gives them the kind of a little nudge that they need.
Right.
Yeah. If I'm doing my job well, I'm balancing managing those goals and keeping people accountable by like lovingly holding their feet to the fire. Because at the end of the day, it's their space. It's not mine. But if they've told me what they want to accomplish and I'm there to help them do that, then I'm going to do my best to support you, but not let you get away with what's holding you back.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that. Okay. I'm trying to keep these to around 45 minutes. I'm going to ask one more question and then we'll wrap it up and we can do it again sometime.
Sure.
We got plenty of other things to talk about. So I guess for me, the way I'd like to ask it is just what is, if you could pick one type of organizing, designing job to do forever, like what does that look like? What's your absolute favorite thing to do? And just Sasha did some Christmas decorating for our office, which went over really well. Loved, like it was such a conversation starter with so many people of like, oh my gosh, there's this orange Christmas tree and there's ornaments with your clients' faces on them. And so like, how cool is this? So maybe it's that, maybe it's not. But anyway, just to say there's so much more than just, hey, your garage is full of stuff. Let us bring in some clear tote tubs and put it all in tote tubs and stack it up on the wall. So like
so much more.
Maybe paint the picture of like what a really fun job is for you to do.
The fun jobs are the ones where the clients want organizing and some help with design.
Okay.
So let's just say, they've got an open floor plan. The dining room actually functions as a playroom. They've got an eat-in kitchen, living room, family room, kind of all, open and talks to each other. But they can't make it make sense, and there's stuff everywhere. And then it becomes the type of project where we figure out what a functional layout for the furniture needs to be.
Okay.
Considering things like traffic flow, like where do we need to leave space for people to get through this part of the space and into that side of the kitchen, or from the kitchen into the playroom without walking around the recliner. Bringing in artwork, window treatments, rugs, small decorative items. And what I see a lot is people have functional furniture like shelves, but they're not actually serving them in the best way they could for the purpose that they purchased them for.
Right.
So solving those, like my favorite jobs, I'll put it this way. My favorite jobs are the ones that allow me to solve all of the three-dimensional, multifaceted problems in one foul swoop. Okay. Yeah.
Love it. Okay. Well, we'll do this again sometime, but we'll wrap it up for now. Thank you so much for joining me today, Sasha, and let's do it again soon.
Thanks, Jordan. This is awesome.
Of course.